So, everyone makes jokes about MMA retirements never lasting. Well, I don't know. It's not even a joke at this point. We just seen Pat Miletich come back after fucking 15 years to beat the shit out of Mike Jackson and then quit on the stool. We've had a lot of weird MMA comebacks, and we might just be getting another weird MMA comeback, or at least a combat sports return. Dan Henderson, Hendo himself, the H bomb, the fucking absolute legend of the sport, is teasing a fucking comeback. He put out a post saying, "What's next? Bare knuckle question mark? YouTuber boxing question marks? Some new things coming this week." He also teased that he has an announcement on Monday. So really not sure what that is, but I have a feeling he's fighting. I don't know who he's fighting, what he's doing, but I think we're going to be seeing Dan Henderson taking another fight at the ripe old young age of 54 years old. I mean, if anyone's going to come back and have like a good performance, it is fucking Dan Henderson. I mean, the guy was fighting till he was like 46, but I mean, still, it's obviously not great for him to come back and at this point, 53 years old, sorry. Like, obviously, it's not a great idea for him. But I mean, if anyone can come back and have some level of success at that age, I mean, it is Dan Henderson. He should just fucking fight Mike Jackson in MMA. He'll probably win that fight. I would generally pick him. We just seen Mike Jackson get the shit beat out of him by Pat Miletich. So generally, if Dan Henderson wants to just come back and get an easy, quick win, then just give him fucking Mike Jackson, man. I think he would win that, but yeah, I don't know. The hunger with all these, especially these older veteran fighters, like that hunger is always there, man. Like they're always we're gonna see so many fighters from this generation fucking making some crazy comebacks in the future. I can just guarantee it. Like there'll be so many fighters. Like I can see Kevin Holland like fucking fighting till he's like 50. Like maybe he retires a few times here and there, but I could see Kevin Holland fighting in like his fucking 50s or something. There is just a few fighters like that that I see. But as for Dan Henderson, who is he going to be fighting? I don't know why. I have a weird feeling he's going to be fighting Chuck Liddell. I have no sources on that. Chuck Liddell, I don't even know if he's talking about a comeback. Maybe Tito Ortiz. Tito Ortiz apparently wants to have one last MMA fight. He never fought Dan Henderson. I think that would probably be a good fight. I just pray to God this isn't Dan Henderson versus like fucking some YouTuber like Dan Henderson versus fucking I don't even know Slim or fucking I don't know who even could it be, man? Like Dan Henderson versus Gabe Silver. Like it'll be something really weird, probably. But I think the best option would be like Dan Henderson versus Tito Ortiz. Dan Henderson versus fucking I don't know some legend. That would be the best scenario that we would get out of this. But more than likely, it's gonna be Dan Henderson versus like some fucking young influencer or something. Because we cannot ever have a fucking MMA fighter retire on a good note. He had a real competitive fight with Michael Bisping for the UFC middleweight title. Nah, not allowed to go out on that. He's gonna come back. He's gonna tarnish his retirement against a fucking influencer probably. But hey, maybe he's not even fighting. Maybe he's just throwing everyone off. But it seems like the way he's been teasing this announcement, it just seems like he is coming back for a fight. Like I don't know. It's just weird how he's wording everything. Maybe this is just a ploy and he's going to announce that he's signed a deal with someone to coach or he's going to be starting a podcast. Or I don't know. Maybe he's just trying to hype it up in his own way. But I've always thought that if anyone was going to make a random comeback, it was Dan Henderson. You could see he still had lots of fight left in him after that Michael Bisping fight. Maybe he shouldn't have waited fucking like 7 years before he made his comeback. But yeah, if any fighter's going to have fight, it's going to be him. But this is why, in my opinion, we need a Legends League. All of these guys are going to fight fucking whether we like it or not. People will say, well, uh, Well, it's not good for them to take damage and everything. They're already fucking damaged. They've already taken a shit ton of damage in their life. They literally fought for a fucking living. At this point, they're not gonna. That's all they know is fighting. Some of these guys just have identity crises. Why not just let them fight like fucking older guys, like legends, like do a Legends League, or a fucking just a league where everyone is like above the age of like 45 or something. Like I know it sounds crazy, but these guys are going to fight regardless, so instead of watching them go in there and get fucking killed by young guys, why don't we just get them in there with guys their own age? I know it's not ideal for them to still be taking hits and everything in their old age, but like if we know they're going to fucking fight at that age anyway, why not at least make the fights competitive instead of it just being them getting ran through after fucking ran through? Like, you're never going to change these guys' minds. They have that warrior mentality. They are warriors. People can say all they want, like it's a bad idea. Well, what would you rather? Would you rather these guys have like a fighting chance in these fights where, if it's two older guys, maybe they're just going to gas out and they're not going to kill each other, or maybe it's a fucking they go out there and grapple. Like, at least it will be competitive. If you put a young guy in there with like fucking Dan Henderson, like imagine who's like a good example. Imagine if they let Dan Henderson fight in the UFC again. Imagine fucking Dan Henderson versus Joe Pyfer or fucking Gregory Rodriguez or Michelle Olachechik or something like that. Like some fucking deadly like KO artist. Like imagine if they did that. It just wouldn't end well, would it? It just wouldn't. But imagine if you did like Dan Henderson versus like who's like a legend that I can even think of? Like, Chris Weidman. Imagine if they did Dan Henderson versus Chris Weidman. They're both older fighters now. Like, that would probably be competitive at this point, which is really fucking weird to say because we all know how good Prime Weidman was, but still, like, you never know at this point. I'm not saying that's what should happen. Like, I'm not saying they should bring Dan Henderson into the UFC and do him versus Chris Weidman, but I'm just saying Legends League would really solve so many issues. They would still get money. They would get to fucking do their passion, which is fighting. A lot of these guys never really truly lose that passion for fighting. And they're always going to be warriors. That's why you'll see a lot of these guys whenever they can get into a self-defense fucking scenario, like, be a hero in like a fucking shop. If someone's trying to rob a shop or something, they always take to that opportunity to go to beat the shit out of a robber. They want to relive that fucking glory. Like, I can't think of an example, but I just remember seeing so many retired fighters going in there and like stopping, robberies or shit like that. A lot of these guys just want to beat the shit out of people still. I just feel like it would really help them if they still got a goal and shit to focus on. Because you see a lot of these guys, their whole identity is fighting. Like, I don't think this is just a money issue for Dan Henderson. I think this is an identity issue. Like, all this guy knows is fighting. Like, he's had, 6, 7 years? He's probably been fucking miserable in that time. He's probably thought to himself, like, shit, what am I without fighting? Like, he probably just wants to feel like himself again. The guy fought from, like, I think he debuted in, like, 96. He fought for 20 years. You can't just erase that, especially, he was 26 years old when he debuted? Like, that, MMA, and then he was a wrestler before that, like, combat sports is all the guy knew. Like, a lot of these guys are always going to have identity crises after fighting. Maybe, like, I just think a Legends League is, like, as weird as it sounds, probably the safest things for these guys, because they're going to fight anyway. Like, generally, these guys are always going to fight. Like, they're all going to come back eventually. Like, a few of them, yeah, if they've taken enough damage, they're going to be like, yeah, shit, I've completely lost the passion. But a lot of these guys, they just don't. Even if they did take a lot of damage, a few years, and they will start fucking getting that fighter delusion in their head again, that warrior delusion where they'll be like, yeah, shit, maybe I could make a comeback. Maybe I could come in there and prove some things. Like, look at Nate Marquardt. He fucking came back, had like 2 fights, and I think he retired again. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just a weird case where all these guys, eventually they'll probably make comebacks, but it is what it is. He teased YouTuber boxing, like I said. I doubt it, but I have a weird feeling it could be Jake Paul, but I really do doubt it. I can't see Jake Paul doing that fight, like, especially with his reputation, I don't think he's going to go back and fight like a Dan Henderson. Big risk, low reward. Obviously, I think he would beat Dan Henderson, but it's a big risk. If you even make it competitive with Dan Henderson, you're going to get clowned for having it competitive with a 53-year-old man. So I don't think it will be Jake Paul versus Dan Henderson. I also don't think Dan Henderson would do something like Misfits, but who knows? I think Misfits is having like some pro tournament, so maybe he'll be in that. I wouldn't mind seeing, as weird as it sounds, I wouldn't mind seeing Dan Henderson versus Mike Perry and bare knuckle. But obviously Mike Perry is fighting Eddie Alvarez. But who fucking knows, man? Combat sports is in such a weird place. I was talking to Jamal earlier, and I was saying, like, if it was a YouTuber boxing, maybe I was like, Dan Henderson could catch phase tempo, and he responded, read that sentence out. It's like, yeah, that is so fucking true. I can't believe I have to, like, say that. Like, yeah, I reckon Dan Henderson could go in there and KO fucking phase tempo. It's like, no shit. But yeah, we're in a weird spot in combat sports. I know this is a really random fucking rant, but I was about to go to bed and I was like, shit, I gotta talk about Dan Henderson's comeback because the announcement's apparently going to be like in the next like few hours or something. So I just thought I'd make this video before he does his announcement. I don't know. I don't know if he will be fighting again. It seems like he's the way he's teasing it. I feel like if it was, he wouldn't be teasing it like that. Yeah, I guess it makes it too obvious, but who knows? I guess we'll see. We'll see what Hendo does. If he is coming back though, it'd be crazy. He would have fought more recently than Brian Ortega. So yeah, where the fuck is he? Brian Ortega's still a top 3 UFC featherweight, ladies and gentlemen. So just remember that if Dan Henderson does come back. Pat Miletich fought more recently than Brian Ortega. Just had to turn this into some T-City slander. But anyway, if you made it this far into the video, make sure you give this video a like. Let me know your thoughts on a potential Dan Henderson comeback. And yeah, make sure you subscribe and put on them notifications because I upload quite a lot of content. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Goodbye.